Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very first Mountain Forums workshop. My name is Jacob. I'm one of the content marketing leads here at Mountain, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Over the next few hours, we're going to show you why that title you just saw on your screen is 100% true. Everyone can advertise on TV, from local businesses and small brands to even B2B power players who may have otherwise not thought they could drive meaningful performance on the living room screen. Now, Mountain knows a thing or two about helping brands wrap their heads around the power of the platform, as 93% of our customers are first-time TV advertisers. And several of the performance TV experts that help our customers make the most of the platform day in and day out will be talking to you today about how to run successful campaigns, from kickoff to conversion. Now, our day will start with a broad overview of the state of the CTV industry to really set the stage on why CTV is a great opportunity for advertisers and why they should make the leap to the platform right now. Next, we'll discuss how audience targeting really works. We'll dive into the numerous ways you can find your audience and reach the right people with CTV tools that make prospecting, retargeting, and even keyword-based strategies a breeze. Following that, we'll get into all things creative, from the elements that make a great CTV commercial to tips on working with video makers to produce high-impact ads that don't have to break the bank. Keeping this education train moving along, our next session will explore CTV inventory, from where you can expect your ads will run to the platform's unique advantages compared to digital and social video. After that, we'll break down the basics and dive into some details of two of CTV's most important but often misunderstood capabilities, reporting and attribution. And then to bring us on home, I'm going to talk through some key takeaways from the day's sessions to wrap up why you should want to be a CTV advertiser. Now, with all that said, let's kick this workshop off. All right, up first, we're going to explore the state of the CTV industry with our speaker, Tim Edmondson, Senior Director of Content and Research at Mountain. All right, Tim, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. And thank you everyone for joining us today, or if you're watching the on-demand version, whatever day that may be. So glad to discuss the state of CTV industry with you guys. I think, obviously, what Jacob was saying, this is an exciting new space for a lot of different kinds of advertisers, but it's also a place where existing established TV advertisers are also spending quite a bit of budget. And so I think what's helpful for anyone that's exploring this as a possibility is to kind of understand the landscape and what you're working with. And for folks who maybe are already doing this or are experienced veterans when it comes to it, it's always good to get a heat check on where the industry is at, what's the current trends, spend, all that jazz. And we're going to cover that today. So without further ado, let's dive in. So you can't talk about connected TV, you can't talk about streaming television without the viewership, right? That's the whole point. And TV has been on a journey for like a decade plus at this point, and it's been this rise of streaming. And now I think this isn't going to shock anyone on this call, but this essentially is the primary way people watch television now. You can see that not only in the volume of viewers that are streaming every day, every month, every week, but also the time spent that they're streaming. It's beginning to dominate more of that entertainment time, more of that free time. It's something that digital natives who had abandoned linear television quite a bit have found a home on streaming television. And so you're seeing these stats on this slide right here. I think what this really goes to show is that this is an opportunity that is there for you to really connect with the consumers you want to, and it's only growing. Like, we've been talking about connected TV for years, and the story has always been it's growing. Now it's reached the point where it is the way people watch TV, and it's still growing. So that's a fascinating behavior in this digital landscape, and it's something every advertiser should be taking note of, because this is a way to really engage your audience in a very high-profile, creative storytelling type of format. So we're talking about the viewership. Let's talk about your audience, right? So this is something where I've kind of set the stage when it comes to why advertisers need to be there. It's because your audience is there. They are watching more. They are watching more frequently, the time is going up, and advertisers are following suit. So you can see the numbers on the right there around projected spend for CTV advertising. And one thing from I've been looking at these numbers for years now, and every year that number grows, and it grows more than expected each time. Early on, that was in around the 20 billion. It was in the teens, and that wasn't that long ago. So money is flooding into this space, which translates to your competitors, your peers in your advertising set. They are exploring this space and are continuing to commit budget to it. And that is a huge tell that it's something that is working for them. It's helping them accomplish their goals. And it's something that it's going to become table stakes, very similar to you have to have a paid social campaign. You have to have paid social, paid search campaigns. Those are your bread and butter. CTV is becoming that because it is not linear television. It has those digital components that are drawing people in, the targeting, the measurement. We're going to be talking a bit about that today later on in different sessions. But this, if there's one takeaway from this slide here, it's the fact that there are people spending right now, spending big, and are continuing to do so. And I just want to do a quick callback to what Jacob was saying, where 93% of Mountain advertisers, it's their first time advertising on TV. So it's not just the established players that are continuing to invest into CTV. It is this brand new market of folks who haven't run on television yet. Try saying that. See CTV as an opportunity to continue to grow, find incremental growth, connect with consumers, and frankly, this is the beginning of this is how TV advertising is going to be. It's going to be a larger market, and that's because there's more opportunity, and that's something that you should be tapping into because your competitive set is definitely going to, if you don't. And they're going to do it if you do as well. So, you might as well get in the game. So that paints a rosy picture, or at least it paints a scene of not like a gold rush, but it's an ad spend rush. And it's a pretty positive story overall up until this point, when you have a ton of new adopters or a new ad channel that is finding its feet over the years. The marketing strategy and effectiveness has kind of gone alongside the ability of the technology to keep up with the needs of the advertiser. So if you break down what CTV is, it's television, the impact of television with the memorability of the boost on brand awareness and opinion of your brand, combined with the digital backbone of the audience targeting, the measurement aspect, being able to see the actual impact of your ad making an impact, right? So you look at these stats on the side here, you've got 39% of advertisers, they're concerned about transparency, and that's due to fragmentation. And that's because consumers are everywhere when it comes to viewing. There are a million streaming services out there. And so that's not only can be a headache for viewers, it can also be a headache for advertisers who are trying to get that sense of scale, making sure that they're connecting with their viewer wherever they are streaming. That can get a little unwieldy if you're doing direct deals and all that jazz. More on that later. The managing ad frequency, I think as streaming advertising has grown, I think all of us, if you've watched ad-supported streaming, have had an ad that comes up all too frequently, and you're like, oh, this is the worst. That is, as you can see, just over 1 in 3 advertisers are feeling that in some way. And that, as more advertisers fill the space, I think that's going to be something that starts to alleviate naturally. That's just my personal speculation. But there's also a responsibility from the ad server, the technology, the CTV advertising partner to help manage the frequency that ultimately results in the goals that the advertiser is after, but doesn't annoy the audience. It's a fine line. And then lastly, that difficulty tracking key marketing metrics. That's a big one, because going back to what the promise of CTV is, targeting and measurement, if you're not able to accurately track the performance of those campaigns, it feels like, are we really fulfilling the promise of what this ad channel represents, right? It's something where 10 years ago, this would be science fiction. You serve an ad and you can tell if someone saw it, and the action, like if they buy from you, just because of the data feedback loop. But that wasn't possible in linear for sure. They built whole cottage industries around trying to measure ad impact, because they never really had that one-to-one. It's different on CTV. And so if someone is struggling with their measurement, it's a bit of a frustration, right? And I think it definitely falls into the growing pains. And that's going back to the point from before, where the technology is growing alongside the ad channel, and some folks' experience on CTV depends on really the partner that they're working with, because you are going to be working with their technology, how they serve ads, why they serve ads. Is it for awareness or performance in the case of Mountain? And because performance is how Mountain handles things, and you can see that last bullet point there. This is the Mountain plug, you guys, but it's true, and this matters a lot. So please take note of this. If you're using a platform that's built to track performance, and the success of the platform is tied to the success of your campaign, the technology is all going to be built around fulfilling that purpose. It's going to make sure it's getting in front of the consumers that care about your brand, even if they don't know you. Using advanced targeting model, we have one called Mountain Matched. It's fantastic. It finds folks who are high intent and serves ads to them, or it finds people who will engage with your brand based on a number of variables. It helps make the budget efficient. It targets the right audience, and then you can verify that this is all working through that measurement aspect. And so that's one thing. If you're out there, if you're shopping for a potential vendor, keep a measurement in mind, because that is ultimately delivering on the promise of CTV. It's an important element, and highly recommend you work with a technology vendor, or Mountain, why not, to make sure that these pain points, these growing pains, are alleviated or eliminated as much as possible. And it's going to make life a lot more rosy for CTV advertising for your brand. So what's next? Well, this is exciting, because I hope I've painted a picture of an ad channel that has grown, is hugely significant now, but has not stopped growing, and the opportunity and potential has not stopped growing as well. So let's look at what that means for the immediate future, what's happening now, all that fun stuff. So were you shocked to see AI on this slide? Because you shouldn't be. It's everywhere, and it's an interesting time in the tech space, basically every industry, because AI really, I think, is at this moment where adoption is ramping incredibly. It's part of every conversation when it comes to a business, it seems like, and it's something that is extremely helpful if it's applied in the right way. Like there's a lot of AI slop on the internet, and you can see examples of that when it comes to not handling AI the right way. But if you use this tool in the right way, you build technology around it, it can make a big difference. And going back to Mountain Match, that's a component of this. It essentially is able to make decisions and identify opportunities through that automation. This used to be manual work, manual optimization. This is no longer the case. The technology is able to parse the data, and it's a bunch of data to go through to find those best opportunities, and it gets better every day. And so AI is definitely going to be a continued theme, probably forever, I would assume. It seems like the concept behind AI is that it solves for a big need, and so that need will never go away. So the solution will probably continue too. CTV personalization, going back to the targeting, you're able to find the exact audience that you want, and that frees you up to explore more messaging options, more ability to deliver an ad that is going to resonate with folks. You don't have to blunt its edge so much, especially if you're using CTV for lower funnel campaigns, when you've got someone who knows your brand already, has visited your website, if you're retargeting them, you can really refine that message. And so one thing that I think you need to keep in mind is that CTV is an opportunity to really find a way to connect with your audience in a much more close way. And then lastly, shoppable TV. Ad formats on CTV are going to continue to be iterated. Again, it's that digital ad channel vibe and capabilities that allows for a lot of creativity in ad formats. Keep an eye out for those. You read the trades, you'll see those pop up every once in a while. A lot of it is in pursuit of trying to find the right way to engage consumers, remove friction points, also be able to attribute performance. All of that said, those are going to continue. They're going to find their feet. They're always going to be there. I'm very curious to see how those continue to evolve in this space. Fast channels. So these have been the dark horse, like the powerhouse of CTV, and these are free ad-supported streaming TV, and these are very popular, especially in an environment where people are kind of paying attention to their budgets. They want to make sure that they get good value. And you can see the value when it comes to fast, because these are free. You get to watch them, but you are served ads. The viewer is served ads in exchange for the free content. And people, that's been TV forever. And obviously that's, has its own, like TiVo was invented back in the day for this purpose. But because they get the content free in a world where everything costs money, the ad is now a fair trade. And I think the stat I saw was like close to 80% of consumers believe that is a fair trade. And so these fasts are a big piece of the streaming puzzle. And so being able to reach your audience there, that's more ad inventory available. This is something to keep an eye on for sure. And then lastly, I think this is my last slide. Break out of boring B2B. So going back to the top of this rambling presentation of mine, just noting on that there's new kinds of advertisers that are really embracing television for the first time. And these tend to be types of advertisers that maybe relied heavily on search and social. B2B has its own marketing playbook and classic ad channels that everyone loves and everyone uses. But CTV, we've seen on our platform, B2B brands embrace the heck out of it because it does offer that targeting and measurement. Sorry, I sound like a broken record, but like that is a ton of value when it comes to reaching your audience. Because of the accessibility of CTV and its flexibility, this is something that we're seeing B2B brands really embrace, but also local advertisers, those who are, have foot traffic, like want to drive traffic to their storefronts. The geo-targeting allows, to focus on folks that are in, distance of that location. It's something where, because you have that precision, it's pulling in the B2B marketers of the world. It's pulling TV budget and other budget into more CTV advertising for local businesses or small businesses. It's really just something that's super accessible. And I hope everything in terms of the state of the industry, kind of explaining what's going on and how the ad spend is evolving right now, kind of makes the case for there's going to be something for you on CTV if you're new to it. And if you're experienced, there's always going to be a new opportunity to plug into and to find incremental revenue or signups or whatever your site or your campaign goal is. There's always going to be a new opportunity to be able to find those folks and convert them and do it in a more efficient way. And so with that, that's all I got. I'll go ahead and kick it back over to our host, Jacob. Jacob, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tim, for taking us through this really 360-degree overview of the state of the CTV industry. I really hope all of the information that you just heard is going to be really helpful in, making sure that you can really tell the story of why CTV as an opportunity is something you should really start jumping in on, especially as you mentioned, Tim, AI is everywhere. So it's good to, get a leg up on the competition in that respect. All right, now let us move along to our next session. Find your audience on CTV with our speaker, Jessica De Leon, Customer Success Account Director at Mountain. All right, Jessica, passing the mic to you.
All right, thank you so much. Great to be here. Excited to walk everyone through some audiences. I'm Jessica De Leon, Account Director here at Mountain. All right, so I think we're just gonna jump right in here and talk about audience targeting. So we're gonna look a little bit backwards a little. So linear TV was not a great option for brands looking to get specific with their advertising efforts. Traditionally, TV was bought based on the blunt instrument of an age-gender demo. This was a broad strategy and left a lot of wasted impressions. Combined with the difficulty of reporting, brands looking for performance tended to opt for other channels. Paid efforts like social media and paid search have changed audience targeting. Keywords and specific demographics, such as in market for a certain item or a specific job title, mean that brands can get really specific about who they want to reach. This allows for ad dollars to be spent more efficiently, rather than a broad approach that you hope reaches your audience and wastes a lot of impressions. This more targeted approach uses every dollar efficiently. Here we go. Enter connected TV, or CTV for short. Now, TV has been upgraded to have those same digital roots as paid search and social. Plus, with the ability to measure lower funnel outcomes, such as return on ad spend, it has become the third performance channel. So what exactly can you target on CTV? You can target prospecting, retargeting, CRM, and local. So let's talk about prospecting first. Prospecting allows you to reach, engage, and convert people who haven't purchased from your brand yet. At Mountain, we made it even easier to determine what you should be targeting with the world's first proprietary keyword-based audience builder for TV, CTV, Mountain Matched. Our proprietary technology goes beyond traditional targeting and matches you with consumers who will love your brand and take action. So how exactly does Mountain Matched work? Let's get into those details. All right. So our system creates a keyword profile of your ideal customer and the types of products they want most based on your website and mobile app data, which you can then edit by adding and removing keywords, just like you do with paid search. Mountain uses those keywords to build you an audience of consumers who are most likely to purchase your products based on their shopping behavior, meaningful life events, and most relevant interests. Your previous site visitors are automatically excluded to focus your campaign on acquiring new customers. Your audience is organized into 3 categories. High intent audiences. These are the audience that are most likely to visit your site and convert today. You can target 100% of this audience and maintain the same return on ad spend and cost per acquisition. Then we have medium intent audiences. These are likely to visit your site and convert today or in the near future. They're a great opportunity to scale success. Finally, we have maximum reach audiences. These audiences are helpful to include to increase your brand awareness and long-term growth potential. Other ways you can build an audience is through third-party audiences. There are thousands and thousands of ways to target your prospecting campaigns. You can do this through interests, past shopping behaviors, age, demo, and more. Knowing your audience helps you narrow in on who you should be targeting and what they would be interested in. So now we're going to talk a bit about our B2B audience. If you're a B2B company, you may also wonder if you can get as specific with audiences as you can on your favorite social media tool, not naming any names here. And with CTV, you can take that job title targeting and more to the TV screen. You can get precise with your B2B targeting just like you would on other key B2B platforms. Third-party B2B audiences can include role type, job function, company size, company sales volume, decision-making capabilities, in-market signals for specific types of software, and more. We have top B2B partners fully integrated into Mountain Platform via our partnership with LiveRamp, including Bombora and Analytics IQ. Additionally, we have the capability to narrow your third-party audiences, which I find especially helpful with B2B. Now let's jump into retargeting. Next up in the targeting universe is one you'll also be familiar with if you're active on other performance channels, just like I mentioned, retargeting. You can target site visitors, customize these options by time spent on site, how many pages they visited, items in their shopping cart, and more. Retargeting allows you to share a different message with potential customers who have already shown interest in your offerings. Creative testing and different CTAs, such as promo codes, work really well here. More on creative testing a little later. Okay, so next we have CRM. So speaking of these loyal fans of yours, your loyal customers or perhaps lapsed ones that need a reminder of who you are. You can just upload your data and our technology matches it across 99% of available US households. On CTV, you can also speak to your audiences based on location, target based on zip code and DMA, or you can even drill down to distance from your store. So we're gonna just touch on reporting lightly. We're not gonna go too deep into this since there's more on that coming up. But CTV makes it easy to see what audiences are performing. Look for a partner with an easy-to-use dashboard so you know who your message is resonating with. At Mountain, audience reporting allows you to see how each keyword is performing. Plus, you can use the results of your CTV campaign to add keywords to your other strategies. All right, so let's jump right into this case study with Jace. So first-time CTV advertiser Jace Medical saw results with CTV's audience targeting strategy. The challenge, Jace's lean marketing team wanted to convey the brand's distinctive value proposition to high-intent audiences while maximizing their limited resources. The solution? They used Mountain's prospecting to target their audience from multi-generational targeting to specialized groups of viewers like major news network viewers and travel enthusiasts. Then they became early adopters of Mountain Match. The target technology recommended several high-intent keywords, including home healthcare, travel planning, and education resources, which Jace supplemented with their own selections. The results were pretty great. From July to August 2024, they saw 49% month-over-month increase in visit rate, 47% month-over-month increase in ROAS, 11% month-over-month increase in conversion rate, and over Thanksgiving Cyber Monday weekend in 2024, their ROAS was 32% higher than their goal. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our audiences.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for showing the folks at home really, how easy it is to find audiences on connected TV and really the entire suite of options that they really have. I do think Mountain Matched is still some of the coolest tech I've really ever seen in the ad tech industry. And I'm so glad that we were able to sort of, provide this very digital marketing feeling thing to a TV screen, something that, a lot of people might not have known was even possible and kind of wasn't until we were able to sort of bring that to the table. So Thank you so much, Jessica, for taking this all through. Now, before we start our next session, I wanted to let everyone know about this exciting new all-in-one learning platform we've recently launched, Mountain University. Now, it's your portal for discovering everything you need to know and maybe a few things you didn't know you needed to know about connected TV advertising. Our courses run the gamut from covering the basics to diving into creative strategy and what performance TV is all about. Basically, if you like what you're learning today, you're going to really like what you find on Mountain University. And the best part is, it's all absolutely free. Now, if you'd like to learn more, scan that QR code you see on your screen. And if you don't want to scan now, don't worry, you'll get this QR code again later in the day. All right, now let's get into our next session, Developing Creative That Converts, where we'll be talking about everything you need to know about making TV creative. And now let me introduce our speakers. Jonathan Delgado, co-founder of the company Brighter, who is also a quick frame maker, as well as Ali Archard, customer success account director at Mountain. All right, Jonathan, Ali, take it away.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, Jacob.
All right, Jonathan, great to see you again.
You too. How are you?
I'm great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join today. To kick things off, can you give us a little bit about your background and your work with QuickFrame?
Oh, sure. Well, QuickFrame and I were like a match made in heaven. I have this long history in advertising, dating back way before any social media, and working in, high-end advertising in New York and Los Angeles, creating ads for Coke and Pepsi and Nike. And then as digital came in, and my first experiences with it were with with Amazon and all the early people who were just trying to get into things like Shop the Show way before it was ready, moved into social and started my company that was focused on creating advertising on social. So when QuickFrame and Mountain came around and they were, taking this new frontier of letting direct-to-consumer brands and smaller businesses advertise on TV, that was like, oh, great, I can go back to making video advertising for TV, which was my first love. I mean, I grew up with a $6 Million Man. I love TV and I love making ads for TV. So we've been doing this with QuickFrame now for a few years and had really a lot of fun and a lot of success. And really, it makes me very happy to see so many cool, unusual, fun brands getting their message out and getting their marketing out on broadcast. On CTV.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I love to hear it. For a lot of people who may be joining today might be completely new to video advertising, starting completely from scratch. What would your biggest piece of advice be for those people? And where should they start when thinking about making video ads?
Well, I think I'll focus primarily on CTV, which is really such a specific medium. I mean, every medium is so specific and it needs to be treated that way. And one of the examples I'm going to show that you asked me to get some examples ready is about that. But the most important stuff to know about marketing commercials, ads on CTV is it's a super specific medium. It looks simple because everyone's been watching TV all their lives. Everyone thinks they understand TV 100%, and you understand a lot of it. But what goes into making a successful, really, really, really effective ad for CTV is pretty complex and it's pretty simple. And it's one of those things that when it's done really well, it looks like it took no effort at all. It looked like that was exactly what was supposed to be said at the exact moment by the exact right person. But there's a lot of energy that goes into that, and there's a lot of knowledge that goes into that, and we keep our messages as simple as possible, and we keep our gestures as simple as possible, and we keep our focus on the product and the core essential purpose at all times, and everything serves that end.
That's great. And I love when you said it's really about you think that's that right moment, that right time, but so much goes into it on the back end. So amazing. I'd love to hear from you on what creative best practices would you suggest that every video have?
I think I kind of just said it, but we need to know who the star of the show is at all times. That's something I feel very strongly about. And each project that comes to us here at Brighter, that's always paramount. Put the star of the show in the center of the stage as much as humanly possible. Now, that doesn't mean literally that we see your product sitting in the middle of the frame, but it means our story is about it. The emotional connection we're looking for is the emotional connection the product is looking for. That's probably the single biggest best practice. I mean, there's the easy stuff like reduce any friction, have a URL on the screen at all time, have a great CTA, understand who you're speaking to. I mean, that's the easy stuff. The hard stuff is getting that message and that product in the center of the story in such a way that it doesn't look corny or boring, or, we need to get their attention. We need to make it interesting. We need to make it motivational. We want to move people from a screen to an action. So finding the way to put all that into simplicity, that's the best practice, really.
Thank you. I appreciate all that great feedback. For advertisers, what should they think about when an advertiser is looking to start creative? Like, how would an advertiser work with a creative like you? And what should they keep in mind when they're creating a video?
It's a high touch endeavor. I like partners who are interested in back and forth and really getting their hands dirty in the process. It's the more communication we can get with you, the better. It can be a low touch thing if you put a lot of front end work into it and your briefs are really good and really thorough, great audience understanding. You have great messaging, fine tuned, have really great, your product attributes you want mentioned really clearly laid out. But if you don't have the time to get that really dialed in, a lot of back and forth is usually great. Nobody knows your product better than you all do. And sometimes the conversations I can have with a chief marketing officer or a founder, there's just the smallest nuances in tone in the conversations can tell us so much about what they know about what they're doing.
So it sounds like really being involved and, coming to you with a lot of this insight, but also being present so you can pick up on the subtle nuances as well.
Yeah. The subtle nuances is where the fun is. That's where you find the most value usually.
Oh, good. That's why you're the creative. Next, I think it's interesting because I think we all have an idea of being on set for a shoot. What should an advertiser know if they plan to be on set? And most importantly, what should they do or not do during a shoot day? I'm sure you have some stories.
Oh, I could tell tons, but I'll just say that I always like to say that the production day, if done properly, is the absolute most boring day of the process. There's a lot happening and it looks like total utter chaos. But good pre-production equals good production. So the story should be everything should be really well defined. The last thing you want to do is make changes on set. Everybody's been working hard for this one end, for this one thing. So changing dialogue or switching out a product or, it's really a big red flag in production. And the other thing, which is I always like to say, and I often kind of say this to people who come to set who are more brand side, is this team, the production team, they speak an entirely different language than you. It's just funny at first. We have terminologies and ideas and ways we communicate, and that is fun, first of all, because we like to have fun, but also like the language and like a DP will say, I'm going to slow that light down. Like, what does that mean? I'm going to slow that light down. And that means make it a little darker. There's tons and tons of terms that go through production. So a lot of trust has to go into that day. And that's my big message when you show up for production day. Have fun, sit back, watch the rodeo and enjoy it. But a lot of trust has to go into that day if you're going to come, because it looks really chaotic.
I like the note on how it's like speaking another language. So let the creatives go to work and build that trust. I love that. It sounds like you brought in a few examples of your work today, which we're excited to see. If it's okay with you, let's take a look at the first example, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about how this ad came together and what worked about it.
Yeah, this is a great ad. I brought this 2 ads to play back to back. And the reason I brought them, because I thought it was this really amazing example of someone doing CTV and social at the same time. And I'm a big fan of this. I think that you really get a lot of bang for your buck for both your CTV and your social. Your CTV value adds value because we get this kind of like immediate, personal, kind of spontaneous feel, because we have these kind of social people around, the actors primarily. And then the social assets get such a plus by, we're producing social, but, hair and makeup's on set. And it's probably a more expensive house than the creator actually lives in. So it gets elevated a little bit. So you still get that great social feel, but, everything just looks kind of good. So I'll play the first one first. I'll play the CTV we did first, which was really the,
What is this stuff?
Sugar.
Hiya Kids Daily Multivitamin is everything you need and nothing you don't. Made with over 15 essential vitamins and minerals. No sugar, no artificial dyes, just goodness. Hiya comes with a refillable bottle and stickers to decorate. Then get fresh refills sent monthly on a pediatrician recommended schedule. Join more than 1 million parents who already switched to Hiya and get 50% off your first order.
Sorry, still navigating this new platform. So that was the one of, I think, 3 or 4 CTVs we made. And from those 3 or 4 CTV ads, we made a whole bunch of social assets. And from all those social assets, we also made an additional CTV ad, which was a mashup of the socials. And I'll play that one now.
We love Hiya. It's great for him because he's going through this phase right now where he's very picky with eating.
It's hard to get my kids to eat veggies and superfoods.
So I did a little research and I found that Hiya has no added sugars and it gets delivered right to my door.
I have a lot of confidence in these Hiya vitamins, knowing that there's 15 plus essential vitamins and minerals.
Nutrition should come from food, but with Hiya, it fills in those gaps. It just makes you know, like, okay, they got what they needed today.
What's really cool about all that stuff is those are real parents and kids. Those aren't actors. And the people in the first ad were pulled from that lot. That's her niece, not her daughter. But they knew each other really good, so they had the right chemistry and dynamic. And that's easy for us to do. I live in Los Angeles, and we produce in Los Angeles, and it's quite easy for us to produce that kind of content because so many real people with children also happen to act a little bit here and there. So we get that nice, elevated UGC. Should I go right into the next one you asked me to pull?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I pulled the second ad and you asked it to be really different. So I picked an ad with dogs. I thought, what could be more different than I do kids and dogs, the hardest 2 traditional things to do for TV. It wasn't really intentional. It's actually, this stuff is just the most current stuff we've done. But here's an ad we did for Fresh Pet, which is a really great brand. And I pulled this ad primarily to talk about, or just to highlight on a really great client production relationship where it's super complicated. I mean, when we produce these Fresh Pet ads, we produce like 8 or 9 of them at one time, and it's a specific dog food recipe with a specific dog with the right demographic for the owner. So this becomes an interesting study in, the messaging is fairly simple, but hitting the right notes in terms of the right kind of dog with the right kind of food with the right kind of demographic for the owner becomes really important and really interesting. So here's the one of many of a Freshpet ads we just recently finished.
Graham has great taste, and he knows exactly what he loves. Freshpet's protein-packed small dog recipes. This high-quality food fuels his fast metabolism and promotes healthy muscle development. Just look at him. He loves his Freshpet food as much as I love mine.
So super simple in execution, but very precision, tabletop, very different. So I thought it would be good to see a breadth of the kind of stuff you can do with QuickFrame.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'd love to just quickly, before we wrap, hear a little bit maybe on how the process for that second ad differed from the, or differed based on the audience / objective for the first ad.
Yeah,
obviously we're
sure.
talking to, yeah.
Yeah, well, the first ad was really a broader vibe thing. I mean, we put a little hook in the front of it with the what is this stuff, just because we wanted it not just to be a pure lifestyle ad. We wanted to get a little hook, but it's really a lifestyle ad, really. It's really about this mother-daughter relationship and create this good, healthy dyad pair, and see them interacting in the world with the product obviously being in the center of the story. And then the second one was a much more of a precision job, if you will. It's really about, you'll notice the camera didn't move very much because it's really art directed well. It's very, you may or may not feel the difference in them, but for us in execution, it's really quite different. Real precision and going for that precision versus, trying to make it loose and trying to get that camera moving and getting things feeling authentic and really light.
That's amazing. I mean, definitely can see it within the ads themselves. So thank you. Well, my last question for you, Jonathan, is really just any final thoughts about creating video that you'd like to share with maybe some of our first-time advertisers?
Yeah. It's really critical that if you're going to do it, and you ought to do it, it's never been a better time. You have to make it interesting. If you're going to treat it like a social ad or a static ad, you probably won't see the return you're looking for. You really have to grab them. You have to spend the time and the energy and go through the process with someone like me or others to, find those hooks, find those messages, make it fun, make it interesting to watch, challenge things. It's often been said in advertising, being uncomfortable. Well, yeah, get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable because that's what's required to get people interested.
Thank you so much for that. Any other last minute or final parting thoughts before I thank you for your time?
No, just thank you. Thanks everyone for listening to me. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share those ads. And thank you to QuickFrame and Mountain. You all are fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate all of the great advice here today, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
All right. So now that we've talked a little bit about the creative process, let's talk a little bit more about what are some of the creative considerations. Once we have that CTV ad, what do we do from there? So really, it's all about testing. If you're unsure about your audience on CTV, begin by testing general ads against existing audiences. These could be audiences you target in your search and social strategies, or you can expand your scope with third-party audiences that you can test ads against. The more you test, the more you will learn who your message is resonating with, as well as what message is resonating with which audiences. This will help inform both creative variations for your existing campaigns as well as net new creative on future CTV campaigns. Once you make your initial creative that adheres to best practices, including the ones that Jonathan mentioned and more what we'll discuss in a minute, you'll be able to launch and test to get even more data to develop better creative. Let's talk a little bit about understanding creative cost. On the left-hand side, you can see what's going to, certain things that will increase production costs. And on the right-hand side, we'll talk about things to keep costs down and key considerations. So starting on the left-hand side, the following will increase your production cost. Content types, live action rather than UGC, user-generated content, or animated shots. The number of concepts requested, the number and relative celebrity of the talent, number of locations for a live shoot, and of course, working with live animals. So to keep costs down, key things you should consider include a marketplace like QuickFrame, providing timely feedback during that concepting stage, using video you might already have, and of course, utilizing UGC content. All of this will help minimize the costs. Okay. Now we have some of our creative processes and considerations. Let's talk about optimal performance and getting the best bang for your buck. It's really important to be strategic with testing. With a performance marketing approach, you can test and iterate on your ad creative throughout the campaign. And this can mean a lot of different things, including adding in a new voiceover that your audience may find more resonate, or swapping out a call to action to promote a new discount code. You can even pre-plan creative variations during the pre-production process. For instance, if you know who you want to target, or even targeting two different age demographics, you can create opening hooks with two separate actors that could speak to each segment. What this does is it lets you move the needle into what is actually driving performance in your ads, so you can optimize future campaigns that will save you both time and money. This is also what makes the post-production process and properly planning your shoot day so important. But we know that optimization is not a one and done. As you launch campaigns and test new creatives, you'll gather learnings you can use to make iterations in your videos to increase in performance. The process is an ongoing cycle in which you continually integrate learnings and fine-tune your strategy to improve the efficacy of your content. This will save your team's time and bandwidth in the long run, as you can use all of those learnings to kick off future campaigns. Through multiple campaigns with learnings from testing and building libraries of footage for post-production projects, your team will become smarter and more efficient over time. So let's talk about creative that converts. These are the key best practices that we find exist with every great ad. So no matter what your video type or objective, here's the rubric we look at to determine the strength of that video asset. It starts with attention. Jonathan just brought it up, but it's important to understand and to have a strong hook. So 50% of total impact to recall and awareness occurs in the first 2 and 2.5 seconds, respectively. What about branding? Are your logo and URL present throughout the video? Do you use audio mentions of the brand as well? What about your value prop? Is it clear why your product or service is unique? A CTA. It's critical to have a CTA, and have you made it clear of what your audience should be doing next? Do you also have any promotions that you could use to help drive that sense of urgency? Sound. Have you maximized your audio impact through music, dialogue, voiceover, and sound effects? CTV is highly audible and visible, so you have to make sure that you have the impact on both ends. Finally, text. Have you paired your audio with text to reinforce your message? All of these are critical to ensure that you have the right creative to help drive the outcomes that you're looking for.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Allie, and thank you so much, Jonathan, too, for this really insightful look into connected TV creative and for showing us those incredible ads. As a pet owner myself, I am a big sucker for ads that feature adorable animals, and the dogs in that video were incredible. No, actually, I came from QuickFrame, and so I have a really big soft spot for the work they do and their approach to video. They've helped so many brands unlock video content when they maybe thought that they never could. And in a time when video has never been more engaging, it's just such a joy to see brands be able to get this in a way that doesn't really, break the bank, and also is, highly, highly professional, beautiful quality, really polished. All right, now we're going to head over to our next session. Understand where your ads are running with our speakers. Peter Blacker, Head of Partnerships at Mountain, Kyle Bin, Vice President of Demand Facilitation at Magnite, and Andrew Tint, General Manager of Programmatic Partnerships at Sling. All right, Peter, we're going to start with you. So please take it away.
Okay, great. Well, nice to be here. Actually, it's quite a big week, as it is what formerly known as Television Upfront Week, but it's really just the Upfront Week in New York. I wanted to kind of connect what's been going on this week in New York with the major media companies with what we're doing here at Mountain, and sort of explain how different the world is, and yet in some ways how similar it is. So the concept of an upfront, which literally was born in the 1960s, was this idea that media companies wanted to give access to their most important clients early so they could come in and sponsor really big events, really big shows, really big activities, and things that basically were critical to grow their business. So if you were a car company, you were a beverage company, you were a quick service restaurant, you were any industry, you wanted to be at this upfront presentation so you could see in May, which is where they're always held, what was coming up over the next year. And you, most importantly, and the key word here is you had access to the most premium inventory. So I actually was at NBC Universal for 20 years, not since 1960, because I'm not that old yet, but was part of the upfront process for quite a long time. And during those 20 years that I was there, those upfronts continued now to include digital platforms and streaming, but the access to buy inventory into those programs and those big events was really limited to folks that were in the big holding companies, agencies, the biggest advertisers, and the small and medium-sized businesses never even got a chance to even know what was going to be happening until the event was either too late or too expensive. And again, that access word was not an option for them. And so what I'm really excited about today, we're talking about, is inventory in those big events that you all can take advantage of. That does not require you to sit through a 2-hour long presentation at Radio City Music Hall or one of these other places, and actually levels the playing field so that you can have access to the same big events, the same big sports, the same big movies, the same big shows, series that every other major marketer, every other major company in this country has access to. And that's a first. That's something that is not from the 1960s, it's not from the 2000s, it's barely from the 2020s. And it's a big reason why I came over to Mountain, because when I was at NBCU, I realized we wanted to connect more and give more access to small, medium-sized businesses, performance agencies, performance marketers, folks that we just weren't even talking to. And we had no ability to get through and talk to them. So last year when I was working, because I was running the streaming and data products advertising for NBC Universal, we had the Summer Olympics, and we had all this excess capacity because the games were just so popular. Hopefully you all saw a lot of them. And as that popularity grew, there was no way to be able to go back to the holdcos, go back to those big clients and provide more inventory to them. And there's no way to provide access to some of the small, medium-sized businesses. And so a lot of what we're doing here today, and a lot of what we're talking about is what are some of those big culture defining moments that are things like an Olympics, things like a big movie launch, like a big series, and how can that inventory be part of your mix through Mountain? It's interesting because when I think about what was presented this week, because I sat through way too many of these presentations. It was very long, but there's a common theme, and it is this idea that media in many ways is creating these culture defining moments. We have so many screens and so many distractions, but it's that CTV platform where people are watching streaming, series, events, sports, movies, that really brings us all together and really creates the right platform for marketers to get their message through. Again, how do we then avail that and provide access to you all so that you can take advantage of these things? And so what I thought would be helpful was sort of to use an acronym that I like to use about how you all get ahead with this inventory, because the inventory itself that Mountain is using is working with the big media players, like when I was at NBC, to avail them so that it can be part of your marketing mix. And so the acronym I created was LEAP. LEAP, like LEAP, basically leaping ahead of your competition. And what do I mean by LEAP? I mean that you get a chance to, and there's an L, an E, an A, and a P. The first thing is you're advertising this inventory. The location of where it runs, the L is for location, is critical. You're not running your marketing message in the middle of media Siberia where no one's going to see it, no one's going to talk about it. You're sitting in some cats on skateboards type of thing. The location of your advertising is critical because it also sends a message that you are as big of a player as any major car company, any major telecom provider, any major retailer. So location is the first letter of LEAP. The second one is election, E for election. This is what do you mean by election? What is really important to understand is that in these streaming services, including the one that I used to work with at NBC Universal, between 80 to 85% of the people that are subscribing to these services have said, I want advertising. So it's not like the advertising message is jammed in and they're going, oh my God, I don't want to see it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It's actually something where people have two options. They can sign up and say, I'll take ads and pay less money, but I'll have advertising. I'll pay more money, but have no ads. And overwhelmingly at NBC Universal, as well as other streamers, the audience is saying, I want the advertising. I'm okay with it. And that's because the next letter I'm talking about, so L, E, now A is for ad load. The ad loads of these services are tight and small. We didn't want to repeat what had happened with linear television, where you literally can sit and you have 10 minutes of content and it feels like 10 minutes of advertising. It just goes on and on and on. So as we wrote the playbook for streaming, we said, let's keep it tight. In our case, when I was at Peacock, we were keeping it down to 90 seconds. So very, very tight amounts of ads. And the consumer knows how tight it is because you have a little countdown clock. So like, okay, great, I got 90 seconds, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. And so the ad load, the amount of ads that are put in between the shows is critical, particularly for the last letter, which is performance, P. And by performance, I mean the ability to measure, which I know you've been talking about all day, the ability to measure, is that ad having impact? And a quick, easy way to see a dashboard and be able to understand how your message is resonating or not, how you can use a certain creative to work better than something else. And so that performance element is really critical to this whole equation. So in summary, with my fun little acronym here about you all leaping ahead of your competitors, it's about L, location, the fact that the ads are in really great content, in the content people talk about every day, the finales, the movies, the big sporting events. E, election, people are electing to have advertising. A, ad load, short ad load, tight, so your advertising message stands out. And P, performance, a system where you can go in to a dashboard and see what's working, what's not, how can you move things around. That combination did not exist in upfronts in 1960. It didn't exist in upfronts in 2000 or 2020. It does exist today. And that's why I'm so excited to be part of all this activity, because I know and I've seen firsthand just how much this inventory can work for you and your business and drive results. Because we know of all the businesses that I was working with in my past life, the ones where marketing was the most critical were the ones that were small, medium-sized businesses, because they didn't have one single dollar to waste or put somewhere that was not going to drive results. So really excited to be part of today. Very excited for what Mountain's doing. And I'm going to pass it over to Kyle to talk a little bit more about this inventory and what it can do for you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak with everyone today. Let me see if I can move the slide along on my own. All right. I'm going to talk to you today about one ingredient. We'll get to the ingredients and the whole streaming ad tech landscape in a moment, but one of the ingredients is a supply side platform, which is what Magnite is. And so I'm going to talk to you about what an SSP is, where your ads run, and hopefully give you the confidence that they run in a very transparent and brand safe nature. So at its very essence, a supply side platform is a technology company used to coordinate and manage the distribution of publisher ad inventories or available ad space. In essence, we help publishers monetize their available ad space, and we work with the other side of the house, Mountain, and other demand side platforms, which we'll get to in a second, and help them access that inventory in the most efficient way possible. So moving on to what those ingredients are. And the great thing is we've got all the ingredients here. We've got you guys, the advertisers and brands. We've got Mountain, which represents a platform that does a lot more than just owning a DSP, but they are one ingredient there. Magnite as the supply side platform. And then you'll hear from Andrew Tent with Sling Next, who represents the publishers. But on this slide, if you take a look outside in, obviously we've got the two main ingredients, the advertisers and then the consumers who are watching or consuming content via the publishers. If you go one step in, Magnite represents the supply side platform. So what we do is operate an exchange, an auction-based environment where a demand side platform like Mountains, representing advertisers, can decision and access one by one individual ad impressions. And so to kind of give you a quick explanation of how that happens and using, I think something that's very pertinent right now, which is the NBA playoffs. So let's say that you are watching Oklahoma Thunder game. When that that game goes to a commercial break, that publisher sends what's called an ad call into our system. Within that ad call, it says what content they're watching right now, NBA playoffs, where they're sitting physically down to the zip code level, what other shows they watch, what other websites people in the household have gone to in the last 15 or 30 days. And this helps the ecosystem determine what kind of a target audience they might be. On the demand side, platform specific, they decision on whether they want to bid on that inventory. So they might say, hey, that is absolutely perfect for my Ford F-150 campaign. They bid on that inventory, and if they win, the ad is returned and it's loaded. This all happens in a couple 100 milliseconds. So from the time whistle blows, they go to timeout, screen changes to an ad, this decisioning has already happened. Pretty fast. The other thing that a platform like Magnite, a supply side platform, solves for is duplication and competitive separation. So to Peter's point earlier, if you have a 90-second ad slot, so there's 3 ads, 30-second ads contained within that, our system is going to determine if we got 2 F-150 ads that won auctions. Okay, we're going to throw one of those out. We don't need 3 or 2 in the same pod. Competitive separation. Did we run all full-size truck ads in that pod? And then lastly is frequency. Have we hit them with multiple ads in the last hour? We're not going to bombard them. So the decisioning is all encapsulated in there as well. Lastly, the real benefit, and I think what, bang for your buck is in the old, cable and broadcast model, you were buying a specific geography and you were buying every screen within that geography or cable zone. So to use a real world example, right now, my neighbor who sits about 100 feet away from me is in his early 80s. We both love sports. We're watching the same shows. We are not the same consumer. So in the cable analysis, everyone's receiving that F-150 ad. But now you have the ability to make your dollars go farther by targeting me with that ad because I am the target consumer, but then targeting them with something different. They travel all over the world, so they might get a Marriott ad or United Airlines ad or something that pertains to their interests. So now you have made that dollar go a little bit farther. There we go. Next is how trusted is this platform? And I'll use Magnite as an example because that's what I know best, but we want to make sure that everyone can transact in a very brand safe and transparent manner and not have to worry about any fraud getting its way in there. So at Magnite, and I think at all of the platforms that Mountain works with, you're looking for a company that has a dedicated team of supply quality specialists. So there, we have strict onboarding and compliance standards. So no one can get on our platform for you guys to access without going through a long list of checks and balances. Once they are on the platform, there is ongoing active auditing and monitoring of everything they're doing to make sure that nothing goes awry. And lastly, we're always monitoring for what we call invalid traffic or IVT. And that's in its most essential form. It's just making sure an ad is being shown to a genuine person in a visible format. Lastly, I think the most important part is where your ad's showing up. This is a snapshot of the inventory that is available. But at Magnite, 96% of the ad-supported streaming services are available and at your fingertips. You can see on the left, programmers. These are all of the logos that we've all grown up with and know and love. Then you have local broadcasters. So these are all the broadcast groups, again, that have been a part of our TV buying world forever. Then you move into MVPDs, which are multi-channel video programming distributors. Think of your cable companies, Comcast, Cox, Charter, etc. Then they have virtual MVPDs, so they're streaming arm as well. Think of Sling. Device manufacturers, so everyone building the TVs. If you don't have a Roku or a Fire Stick or some other sort of device, all of these devices now allow you to use their UI to download your Netflix, Hulu, Fubo, Sling, etc. They also have free ad-supported channels within those UIs. And then lastly, it's free ad-supported streaming television. And so these are platforms where the value exchange is it's going to be free, but you're going to have to watch ads. And these are gaining a lot of momentum as well. Through all of these, it's the same inventory, or excuse me, the same viewing experience that you guys have seen for decades and decades. You're still accessing the Olympics, sports, live linear television, video on demand, movies, whatever your heart's desires. So that in a nutshell is kind of what an SSP does and what inventory is available to you in a brand safe and transparent manner. Now I'm going to kick it over to Andrew Tint, who's going to take you down the rabbit hole a little bit farther. So Andrew, all yours.
Thank you. A lot of pressure to follow up a Washington Huskies College Football Hall of Famer. I was runner-up for best smile in high school, so I do feel like I'm sort of similar and on par to what Kyle Ben is. So today I'm going to kind of talk about, you heard from both men about the power and the role and responsibility that CTV plays today from both a technical perspective and from how Mountain looks at it. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the actual inventory. I think Peter kind of summed it up right. And essentially the way that I think about connected television today is it has allowed for the democratization of inventory. right? You think about in the 90s, I don't know how many of you were watching TV back then, but you essentially had 11, 12 channels. When you were sick, you watched Jerry Springer or Murray, and at the same time, you know, if you wanted to play video games, you turned on channel 3, and if you went too high of a channel, the television would make a really horrible noise and the screen would be gray, and it was kind of awful. But there was a very select few who could actually access that content, right? And Peter talked about it a lot in sort of the upfronts. And since then, the television world has become extraordinarily fragmented. It went from 10 networks to 20 to 30 to 40 to 400 to 800 to apps scattered throughout the whole ecosystem. If you go on cable today, you can scroll easily 1,000 networks. And back then was consistent and beautiful. Today it's muddied. But that muddiness and that scatteredness, which I'm assuming scatteredness is a word, is actually advantageous to consumers and to brands and advertisers today, because what it has allowed is A, access, which I'll talk about, but B, it's allowed for a more engaged user base. We always, you know, I actually worked with Kyle Ben 6-7 years ago for many years, and we always talked about the lean forward approach of connected television ads. It is your big screen. It is content that you have sifted through to watch, right? That's the beauty of all of this, all these apps all scattered around the ecosystem. You are choosing more specifically what you want to watch. And I think that inherently has power for advertisers, especially when you start to combine the opportunities that MNTN allows with targeting and attribution and all the power that comes with data, with the technology that a company like Magnite offers, right? With content like Sling. And so to dive deeper into that, Sling is what's known as a multi-channel video programming distributor. It's actually a virtual multi-channel video programming distributor. So as Kyle explained, in the old days, you wanted TV, you would get a little satellite on your roof, and you would tell all your friends how cool it is because it came from space and it's exciting and it looks like a spoon, but it would go out when it rained, all of that lovely jazz. Today, all you need is an IP address and a television. And so now that people can have such easy access, what we have found is there are a group of people who want to cut their cord. And that just means essentially, hey, I don't want cable anymore. I'm just going to watch my HBO Max, which is going to be HBO Max again, or I'm going to watch Tubi or Pluto. But then there are a group of people who still want that cable experience, who want the opportunity to watch things as they happen, who want to watch Monday Night Football with the rest of America, who want to watch new episodes of Vanderpump Rules, who want to watch breaking news. And they want to do it on a singular app that keeps that old school TV experience. And the reason being is because fundamentally, people still love talking about content, right? People still like going in the next day and saying, hey, did you watch Stranger Things? Or hey, did you watch 90 Day Fiance? Or hey, did you watch college football playoffs? And so what has happened is because of the way that these television ads are now delivered, which is, as Kyle and Peter said, in a more one-to-one experience, every ad call and every ad break is a unique ad break geared towards the consumer. It allows brands of any size, whether it's Coca-Cola or Ashley's Paint Shop in Ottumwa, Iowa, to buy a personalized ad experience for the consumer. So instead of paying $750,000 for an ad on Monday Night Football, you can pay in the low teens at most to deliver your ad specifically to user bases who it's more relevant, because not everyone is going to be repainting their house, right? And so the biggest thing that we see, at least at Sling, is that we give you that old school TV, and I can't even call linear TV old school, so let me back up, because if my boss heard me, I'd get in a lot of trouble. That really super cool TV experience that we all love, but we're doing it in a way that is more conducive to how people think and consume media today. And the avid Sling audience is watching 4 hours of television a day. and it allows plenty of opportunity and plenty of scale. Kyle called it avails, plenty of avails for you to buy that media and know that you are getting transparency in where you ran, premium content, which again, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we consider premium content, and performance. Right? And I think that's what makes live TV so powerful. I think it's what makes an SSP powerful. I think it's what makes a company like MNTN so powerful. And so the question that I always get is, well, okay, there's hundreds of choices. A buyer still paying for streaming plans, a buyer still paying for live TV, and I think, as I noted earlier, the fact of the matter is there is still a group of people who really like that old school experience, and there's so many choice for consumers that is fundamentally a good thing. At Sling, a few years ago, we were at roughly 2 million users. Well, now we've added Dish as well. MNTN has access to over 5 million subs and 30 million unique individuals, right? So there are 30 million people that MNTN can hit through the pipes that we have created via Magnite. That's still only 5% of the households, right? And so the beauty of where we are now is, hey, you really have to work across multiple partners to deliver ads in a premium environment. And live TV is one of those. We know it's a highly engaged environment. We know that the average user is watching over 4 hours versus an hour and a half on others. But the fact of the matter is people still, or at least a good subset, enjoy the experience that connected TV brings to everyone. And I think, I'm married and I've gone really into reality TV because of my wife. And I think that we also, and that's the beauty of this industry and the beauty of what tools like Magnite can do, don't just watch Sling. We watch Discovery and we watch Paramount Plus. We watch all of these because the content lives everywhere and because they all offer us unique access points as both an advertiser and a consumer. And so it is worth noting, obviously, we have also found at Sling and at Dish, again, we're sort of combined at this point, is that the reason we've seen such a shift in streaming is it's cost effective. So if you think about it, at the end of the day, from a consumer's perspective, you're paying less for more content. And from a buyer's perspective, you are paying less for a larger, more specific audience. And that is something that I don't think this industry had really been ready for. I think COVID frankly switched it and allowed this massive growth. And we're really in the infancy, in my mind, of getting started. I mean, you heard Peter talking about the fact that Olympics is available now. I mean, that seems shocking for anyone who had ever worked in the TV space. I started as a TV buyer for many years. The idea that you could buy that digitally is fantastic. It is good for all aspects of the ecosystem. But another question that I get a lot, and I think it's a fair question, is, well, why CTV and what kind of quality does CTV offer? Right? What am I actually getting? And I think the first thing that I would say is, for me, premium content means is there an active subreddit about it. If you got 1,000 people talking about it on Reddit, that means at least 1 billion people are watching that content. But in actuality, I think premium content is simply trusted partners and trusted experience. It's no, I'm not going to sit here and say that there is not, I'll use a very professional word, sketchy content that exists. And I think that's why it is so important that you align yourself with businesses like a Magnite or a MNTN who can sift through that for you. Because the fact is, not every product, not every connected TV experience is going to be the same. What you want, and what we always talk about, is you want professionally produced, brand safe, big screen content. That's what we, and excuse my poetic prose, dub legit experience, legit content. Because at the end of the day, when you look at Sling, we define quality, like I said, as really what the consumer believes in, as long as the camera's strong. And so I look at things like 90 Day Fiance, right? I love 90 Day Fiance. I watched 90 Day Fiance Pillow Talk, which essentially for those who don't know, it's just people on 90 Day Fiance watching 90 Day Fiance. Sort of very meta. It's people watching people. Very exciting. Would I define that as quality content? Many people do. Reddit does. But it's certainly premium content. It's content that my wife watches and texts her friends about at it. Right? When you think about Monday Night Football, or the college football playoff, or breaking news, this is the type of content that you, by partnering with Mountain, and by partnering with the Magnite, and by partnering with this thing, can buy and compete for against players like Coca-Cola or P&G or United Airlines. No longer is this type of experience, no longer is your inability to buy a show because you don't have $1 million a hindrance to the fantastic nature and a fantastic experience that television still brings. It is lean forward experience, and you just do not get that as strongly on the web or on short form videos or any of that. You get it from being on the biggest screen in the house. And so one of the reasons we partner with Mountain is there are a lot of companies who will claim that they do what Mountain does, right? And the difference is in the ecosystem that we exist today, through other partners outside of Magnite, buyers can go in and they can buy all the inventory they want with very little protections, right? It's dubbed the open market. And they can get really low rates and be very happy and all that. But then what turns out is, well, they don't actually know what they're buying. They don't know if they're buying Sling History Channel or even if it's actually Sling. And so what Mountain has done that I think has produced fantastic value for the consumers is they've come to us and they've said, hey, we want to create a partnership. Let's frame that out. Let's use Magnite as the pipes. And in doing so, we know that our clients are going to get priority access, transparency on delivery, and most importantly, direct inventory so that they can compete with all the other players in the space. And that is something that, frankly, a lot of folks in the industry, a lot of folks in marketing just simply do not take the time to do. Because when you really think about it, everybody now wants to buy the Olympics programmatically. Everybody wants to buy, when we have the Oscars or when we have Monday Night Football, the college football finals, March Madness. Everybody wants to get it. It's very easy to compete. It's very difficult at times to win, and Mountain does make that easy. And so if I were to sum up kind of what I think of connected TV and what I want you guys to take away, it's that it's no longer just for the big players. I don't know if you guys can see my fingers. It's no longer just for the big players. It is affordable. It is premium, lean forward, full stream content. It is transparent. And on top of all of that, it's growing, and the user base is growing, and the technology is growing, and the audiences you can buy are growing. So it really is, in any media plan, no longer just this upper funnel tactic. It is slowly pushing its way down because of the tools that Mountain has, because of the content that Magnite has, because of the inventory that we provide. And so, I urge you guys, if you aren't buying it yet, you absolutely should. I'm not just saying that because it's my job, though that certainly helps. And I want to thank Mountain fundamentally for letting me come and talk and ramble for so long. It was very enjoyable. And I look forward to probably talking to all of you guys, but maybe not, but hopefully soon. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Peter, Kyle, and Andrew, for just really giving us a much better understanding of CTV inventory. Inventory is just such a big question mark for marketers new to this platform. And frankly, even for me, this has cleared up just a lot about what it all means and really just how it all works. All right, well, we have one more fascinating session for you, demystifying CTV's reporting and attribution with Will Burgess, Head of Professional Services at Rocket. Hey, Will, before we start our conversation, just tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Will Burgess. I'm the Head of Professional Services at Rockerbox. That means I am in charge of providing consulting, strategic guidance, and any help that any brands and advertisers need when they're thinking about media budgets, attribution, and using Rockerbox's products.
Okay, so obviously the topic at hand here is reporting and attribution, two concepts that, at least in the realm of CTV, marketers are still kind of wrapping their heads around. And I think people are still trying to kind of make sense of these concepts for CTV because, as we all know in the digital marketing world, performance is typically measured through clicks. And while, we may like to call the TV remote control a clicker, you can't exactly click on a TV screen like you do on a social video or a search ad. So to start this conversation broadly, can you explain to our audience how CTV is measurable?
Yeah, of course. So it's really interesting what you said about clicks, right? I mean, that's kind of the most measurable thing on the web, if you like. Everybody's used to the idea that clicks can be tracked. Probably every advertiser that is active has Google Analytics or something like it, and they're used to being able to see those clicks coming into their site. And so that's just the sort of understanding that we've all been habituated to. I think some people would also understand that digital views are sometimes trackable, that especially if you're inside a walled garden, that those platforms know which ads they've shown you. And so they can do some tracking, which will allow for a connection that way. But you're right that CTV just feels fundamentally different. It's typically on another device, or doesn't necessarily have to be, but can be on another device. There's obviously no click, as you pointed out, and it's not a sort of walled garden like a social network, so it doesn't have that same feel in terms of understanding that the tracking is there. The solution that we've come up with at Rockerbox has gone far beyond, I think, what people historically think of as attribution. And that's really that we will match on any identifier that we can possibly get. And when it comes to Mountain specifically, what we're using is an IP address. So obviously we know the IP address of a user if they were to be on their own Wi-Fi at home, they see an ad, we know the IP address when they saw the ad, and we can then capture that same information when they go to an advertiser site. So that information is available to us both on the device where they saw the ad, as well as on the device where they might visit the site and hopefully eventually make a purchase. And that's the connection that not only can Mountain make this connection, but Rockerbox can make this connection. And because of our integration, we're able to connect the dots there as well. So it's really that IP identifier is the most important thing.
Okay, well, let's start, narrowing our scope a little bit. Can you explain a little bit about verified visits, which we've already mentioned before is sort of Mountain's attribution solution? And can you speak about Rockerbox's integration of verified visits in your reporting?
Yeah, of course. So verified visits is fundamentally what I just described. So it's this idea of knowing deterministically based on a hashed IP identifier who saw ads, because we know what internet connection they're using, and then who also came to your site. And we can match those two things. And so the verified visit is someone who came to a site and we know for sure based on their IP address that they also saw an ad via Mountains. That's why it's verified. We have that direct deterministic connection. The integration with Rockerbox allows us to put that verified visit into the context of a much longer marketing path. So if a user had clicked on a paid search ad, seen a paid social ad, maybe used an affiliate code, something like that, and also had a verified visit via Mountain, we can string all of these things together within Rockerbox into a single customer journey. And that's extremely powerful because that allows us to really understand the full mix of all of the channels, Mountain included, that contributed to that visit, that conversion, that sale.
Okay, well, now let's move into some tactics. This is a webinar for some first-time advertisers. I'm sure they're very curious about how they can start to really think about and use reporting and attribution here. So how can advertisers use measurement and reporting to best succeed with their strategies?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to skip to a slide a little further ahead if we can. Okay, so it's best to really think about it this way. The data that you're likely to be getting from, say, a paid social network or a paid search channel or any specific individual publisher is likely to be non-deduplicated. That means that if a single user had been touched by multiple channels along their path to conversion, they are likely to be counted multiple times in multiple different places. So I would encourage everyone, if they're really just getting started, to find a solution that starts to deduplicate a little bit of the conversion volume that you're getting through your site. At its most simple, that could be something like Google Analytics, but Google Analytics has a tremendous number of blind spots. The main one being that it doesn't really collect a lot of view activity. It will collect a lot of click activity. It most certainly would be, unfortunately, a little bit blind to CTV. And so the best that you can do is to find a solution that truly deduplicates attribution. So we'll take an individual conversion, split the credit among multiple channels, and then we'll give you a much more true view of the channels that were contributing to each conversion. Once you have that, there's just a couple more steps to being able to take really robust actions on that data. So the first would be to bring in spend data. Once we have spend data and we have that deduplicated attribution where we know the different channels that have touched each conversion, then we can start to assign a CPA, deduplicated CPA, or a deduplicated return on ad spend to every single channel. And then we can start to see which are the winners and losers. So we might be able to see that, for instance, Mountain is coming in with a $20 CPA, whereas maybe one of the social networks is coming in with a $35 or $40 CPA. That would immediately lead us to be able to take some action against those budgets, increase budgets for CTV, reduce budgets for social, and then keep monitoring through my deduplicated attribution in order to understand if we were having the desired impact of raising conversions for the same budget or less.
Now, you just mentioned social, and here at Mountain, we often talk about how connected TV ads can affect and sometimes even enhance performance across your media mix. If anyone here has read anything by Mountain, we typically like to call it the halo effect. So, within this thought about, really the relationship and the dynamic between CTV and these other channels, how do CTV results really sit alongside other efforts like paid search and paid social?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me go to the next slide. So really, it depends firstly on obviously what creative you're running. The creative can make a huge difference in terms of the kind of action that a channel or that a channel impacts. So let's assume that we're using some more kind of brand level creative, right? We're kind of in that upper funnel. That's where we expect to drive that halo into the lower funnel. Well, there's a few things that we could do. Firstly, I could use my attribution platform, my attribution technology. That's the middle layer of the graphic that you see on the screen here. And I could just observe over time, okay, I've launched CTV. What happens to my cost per acquisition and my ROAS in attribution for those lower funnel channels? Am I starting to see that the lower funnel channels are more efficient than they were before I launched this campaign? So that's one thing we could do. The second thing we could do is we could actually do some testing, and you'll see our calibration methodologies there at the top of the graphic. So I could even run a test where I use some geographic holdouts, and I run Mountain in some parts of the country, and I don't run Mountain in others. And I can again observe that halo as it comes through in the geographies where I'm operating the most. So you'll be able to see, again, those CPAs come down in your lower funnel, the ROAS go up. Additionally, you'd obviously also be able to directly measure Mountain. And I think you'll find that CTV generally measures up very favorably, even against those traditionally more lower funnel tactics when you're measuring it within attribution. The last one that I'll mention there on the top layer is MMM, which is a fantastic tool for really getting that most holistic kind of view of everything that you're doing and the impact of all of those channels together. Not just CTV, but also paid social, really anything that you have in market. you can measure that as a time series analysis and understand the impact of that.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful answer. And I have one more question just to really kind of bring us on home. So for those in the audience who are new to CTV or maybe are just trying to upskill their knowledge of CTV measurement specifically, where would you suggest they start to help define success?
Yeah, great question. I think the most important thing is really to plan ahead and think ahead as much as you possibly can. And I think this is the place that a lot of advertisers will run into trouble. Sometimes brands will come to us and say, hey, we launched this channel 3 months ago, and we're just not sure if it's having an impact. And we really need to know because, we've got internal stakeholders who we rely on to approve our budgets. We need to understand how much we're going to sell so that we can inventory properly. And that's really a struggle because oftentimes once something has been live for months, if you didn't plan your measurement ahead of time, it might be too late to really get that read that you need. So I would encourage everybody to think in advance before you plan any media flight. How are you going to measure this? What is the success metric? What are the KPIs that you want to be able to show afterwards to your stakeholders? Even, something that I think about is what is the actual chart? Like draw the slide of what you want to show to your CFO to be able to prove like I was a good custodian of the media budget. This is what I returned. And then plan for that. That could mean picking your measurement provider carefully to make sure that your measurement provider can measure all the channels that you need to. Rockerbox has a tremendous number of integrations. I love it if someone chose us, obviously. Plan your flight in a way that makes it measurable. So we talked a little bit about the geo holdouts earlier. I think if you can plan with that in mind, that's a great option to do. And then thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, is select your publisher partners, your media partners really carefully, because not all partners are as measurable as others. Some are certainly much more measurable than others. And if you think far enough in advance, you can obviously pick partners that are inherently just within themselves the most measurable options for your use case. And if you get those three things right, then hopefully you should never be in a position where you are not thinking about measurement or where you are scrambling, even worse, to think about measurement at a point when maybe it's too late because your CFO asked you for results and you didn't have a plan and now they need something by Friday and you're not sure what you're going to do.
Great, amazing point for us to end on here. Thank you so much, Will, for really just clearing up for our audience all of the ins and outs of reporting and attribution on CTV and giving us some really, hard and true ideas about ways that we can, approach reporting and attribution on CTV for, our own companies. All right, now at the top of the day, you may have been looking yourself in the mirror and asking this question. So you want to be a CTV advertiser? Now, I hope now that we're at the end of our day together, the answer to that question is a resounding yes, absolutely. Please, let's just get started. But before we let you loose to begin crafting your own CTV campaigns, let me recap for y'all some of the high-level takeaways from the day. So first, we learned that the CTV industry is booming and isn't set to slow down anytime soon. Next, we learned that finding your audiences on TV is as easy as search and social, thanks to the performance capabilities of CTV platforms like Mountain. Then we discovered that developing creative doesn't have to be a blocker anymore, thanks to newfound approaches that help streamline the video production process like QuickFrame. We then learned about CTV inventory and that understanding where your ads are running is a lot simpler than you think. We then learned that reporting and attribution aren't really unusual concepts in the world of connected TV anymore. In fact, they're what have helped make the platform a performance powerhouse. And for this final, very short session, we hope the big takeaway is that yes, you can be an advertiser on CTV because everyone can advertise on TV today. Well, folks, that's it. I just want to say a special thanks to all of our speakers, and a big thanks to all of you at home for joining us today for our very first Mountain Forums workshop. Now, if you liked everything you heard and you want to learn even more, please don't forget to check out Mountain University, our free all-in-one learning platform that'll help you become a connected TV expert in no time. Scan the QR code on your screen to enroll today. Now, if you were so glued to this session that you didn't take as many notes as you'd have liked, don't worry. We love a good post-show email, and you're going to get one in your inbox with a recording of this session in the near future. Now, if you enjoyed these sessions and you want to watch more like it, check out our back catalog of on-demand events at mountain.com/webinars, where you'll also be able to find out what we have coming up next. Well, everyone, thank you so much again for joining us today, and we'll see you at the next forum.